Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight across the ocean for a hard ball. I gave my mind such a fine light. Of communism, including Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, Ukraine, and others, with a minute of silence despite our friends over here. Thank you. Now, our first speaker was elected to the State House of Representatives in 2016, becoming only the third Republican to represent the 19th legislative district since the 1940s. He graduated cum laude from Amherst College in 1986 and has a publishing company. He's the father of 5, and he's the husband of a wonderful woman that we all miss. He's a statewide favorite among many freedom-loving people. Please welcome one of my favorites, State Representative Jim Walsh from the 19th Legislative District.
Well, thanks, Carrie. Welcome, everybody. Are you glad to be here on this beautiful day? Yeah! So, it is always an honor to speak at this ceremony, remembering what happened in Tienanmen Square, remembering the tanks, and remembering the heroes, some of them now friends, who survived that and have come here. But really, the reason that these pictures, these iconic pictures, are so important is because the tanks represent tyranny. And tyranny takes many forms. Tyranny is not always a column of tanks. Sometimes tyranny comes in smaller bites. Sometimes tyranny takes away your liberty and your freedom in small steps. Sometimes tyranny comes in the color of an emergency and of emergency powers and of crisis and of public health. But really, what all of those things are is just another version of these tanks of tyranny. And in our country and in this state, the reason that some of the people who survived that have come here is we protect liberty, we protect freedom, we protect individual rights. That's what makes Washington strong, that's what makes the United States strong. And so it's important both to look at the picture and hear the stories of the good people, of the free people who were truly oppressed, who were truly imprisoned, and in some cases killed because they stood up for freedom and liberty. Those are the ones we think of today. Those are the ones we remember, but we need to do more than just remember. We need to carry forward. We need to move the bravery from these free people into the future, into our lives, into our neighborhoods. We need to do right by what they fought for and continue to fight for freedom and liberty here. They are precious things. And remember that this tyranny, the tanks, the erosion of individual rights often comes in the color of free stuff, free things, free university, free housing. But freedom isn't free. What we defend, what we support, is freedom of speech.
Yeah, baby!
Freedom of religion. Freedom of privacy. And to be unmolested in your personal affairs. And most importantly, freedom of conscience.
Come on!
Freedom of conscience
Come on, baby!
is what keeps our markets free, our states free, our countries free. Freedom of conscience, which is explicitly protected in the Washington State Constitution. Freedom of conscience, which drives all other freedoms. And this day marks a high point, a brave point in defending freedom of conscience. So God bless you all. Let's join together and let's protect the good things about freedom and liberty and conscience. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, baby! Yeah, baby!
And shake that motherfucking ass. For freely.
I love that guy.
Yeah, I love me too.
Oh, man.
All right, thank you, Representative Walsh. Our next speaker is the brother of a brave Chinese human rights leader and prisoner of conscience, Dr. Wang Binjiang. And please forgive me if I pronounce the names wrong. I'm just a white girl here. Dr. Wang Binjiang was framed and kidnapped by the Chinese Communist Party, sentenced to life in prison, has been in the Guangdong China jail for 21 years. He published the first Chinese freedom and human rights magazine and founded the Chinese Spring. He founded the first Chinese human rights and freedom organization, Alliance for Democratic China. Please welcome the brother of Dr. Wang Binjiang, Mr. Bing Wu Wang, joining us from Canada.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all coming here. Today is a very special day. It is the 34th anniversary of the Tienanmen Massacre Square. So many people were died. In 1989, in May of that year, there was a flight from Tokyo. And my brother was one of them trying to board a plane to go to Tiananmen to support the student movement. And he carried a large amount of money found from a donation from various sources, including the student from mainland China. But he was denied the boarding because the Chinese government, CCP, has issued a warning to all airplanes that not to let this man to board the plane. So he had to change the plan, and he tried to go to Hong Kong or go to Thailand to board a plane to go to mainland China, but he was not successful. And then he had to give the donation to a friend of his, and that was brought into China and used for the student democratic movement. My brother obtained his doctorate degree from McGill University, Montreal, Canada, but he gave up his medical career and devoted his life to democracy, justice, and freedom for the Chinese people. Thank you. Now, he published the first overseas freedom magazine called China Spring, as Carrie had mentioned, and he formed also the first organization called the Chinese Alliance for Democracy. Yeah. And so many of the magazine and the publication was sneaked into China and helped the people to fight or continue to fight for freedom in China. In 2002, he realized that the only way to help China is to form a political party, official political party within China. At that time, he already formed a Chinese Liberal Democracy Party in the US, right here. So he had that in mind that he traveled to Vietnam with the intention to meet the party leaders there to establish in-country democracy opposition party. But, however, he was kidnapped and abducted, crossed the border into China, and subsequently he was sentenced for life in prison. That was my brother. So, over the past 20 years, he had been in prison, in solitary confinement. Today, I want to talk about my brother has now successor for his goal to free China. In 1989, just before the Tienanmen Massacre, his daughter was born. And then he named her Tian'an, which is Tienanmen, part of it. And his daughter just announced also to devote her life into freedom fighting by giving up her legal as a lawyer, for lawyer. And then, thank you. And then she joined his brother also as a lawyer, as a human rights fighter. And they have established a law firm to support such. So, right now, in other words, my nephew, my niece, they are suing the CCP government for illegal passing private information through this China, Contention, which is big way to get information from here to Taiwan. Thank you very much. Moreover, just recently, about a month ago, and they represent an elderly woman and who was demonstrating in front of the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. They represented this woman to start a lawsuit against CCP for $25 million. So what I'm trying to say is here, although my brother had been in prison and lost freedom, but his son and the daughter continue the fight.
Yeah, baby! Yeah, baby!
Thank you so much.
Thank you!
My brother lost the freedom because he wrote this book. What the title is that Chinese democracy way through revolution. It had to be revolution to throw out CCP. It's the only way. You use soft method, you stand pleading, it doesn't work. The only way is to crack down the CCP. down with CCP, down with CCP, with CCP. So I want to thank you, everyone, to come here to learn the story of my real brother. I have an extra copy of this book, and they are free to take. Of course, they are in Chinese. But this has wakened up a lot of people here in US, in Canada, worldwide, also in China. CCP had to be done, had to be ended. It's an evil. It's an evil party. Agree with me? Yeah. Okay, with that, I thank you so much. Thank you for your time. God bless America. Free Wang Minzhang. Free Wang Minzhang. Free our political prisoners. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful that you came down here to speak to us in America, because a lot of people are asleep at the wheel. And we're letting communist, socialist policies come into our country without batting an eye. We have to be on guard at all times. All right. Now, our next speaker was born in the ghetto of East Oakland and moved to Seattle as a child, where his mother raised him to be a victor and not a victim. He has spent a career in the United States Marine Corps and in the U.S. Army Special Forces, specializing in counter-narcotics and intelligence, specifically in the areas of the world including South America and Asia. He was the ambassador to Bangladesh, and he became a GS-14 at the U.S. Department of Energy in training and leadership. He is currently a Richland School director and a current candidate for governor. Please welcome Mr. Semi Bird.
下午好，对不起，我会说点中文，但是我说不好。那说，现在中国人民和美国人民团结起来的时候了。We must stand together as Americans, Chinese Americans, and the Chinese citizens overseas who have been oppressed by the Communist Party of China. We must stand as American citizens to push back against the oppression, not only of communism abroad, but Marxism and communists within our own borders. So many people come to America seeking freedom, opportunity, and liberty, as was during Tienanmen Square, that massacre. These were Chinese citizens seeking liberty and opportunity and freedom to find their happiness, and it resulted in death and despair. I want us as American citizens, Asian Americans, from all walks of life, to unite and understand how wonderful, how beautiful we have it in this land and in our state. Now that said, I want to make sure that I emphasize freedom, liberty, and opportunity is only available as long as we can keep it, as long as we can hold it, as long as we have the personal courage, intestinal fortitude, and drive to stand up for our Constitution. The same Constitution that people come from all over the world to wrap themselves in because of the safety and the security of this great nation. Brothers and sisters, I say unto you, right now in Washington State, we are going through difficult times. We talk about the Chinese Communist Party as to what is happening there, but I want you to consider what is happening in America, in Washington State, right now. Over this last year, during that very long session, I am glad, I am thankful to God that we had strong, patriotic representatives like Representative Jim Walsh, who is here today, who's holding the line for our America, holding the line for our values and our beliefs. Friends, last year, HB 1333 this administration and this Attorney General sought to form a commission, Violent Extremism Commission. Now imagine what that would do. Us, citizens, exercising our First Amendment right now, right here. Could we be labeled as violent extremism simply for sharing love of our country, love of our Constitution, love of our brothers and sisters here and our brothers and sisters abroad that are being subjugated and oppressed? They further stood together and brought forth another Senate bill, 5599, that was sent from a child runs away from home, that they can be isolated from their parents, isolated from their families. And here's what I say to you, my friends. Our children do not belong to the state. Our children belong to the families who love them and gave them life. When you look at our schools today and you see what is being taught to our children, the indoctrination, to label young children of color to say that their color defines their outcomes in life, that is child abuse. Now you heard my background. I was that kid born in the ghetto of East Oakland, born without civil rights. And here I stand before you as a man who has achieved the American dream, as a man who has served his nation, fought for his nation, bled for his nation, and stands before you a man who loves his nation. I want everybody to understand, no matter what you hear, the smoke and mirrors, America is for everyone. America is for everyone. And the strength of America is derived from the diversity of America. We have always been a nation of love, a nation of opportunity, and a nation of liberty. And I want to cite to you that sonnet at the Statue of Liberty in New York City in that harbor. Send me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shores. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me, and I will raise my lamp beside the golden door. My friends, as I close today, I want you to understand, America has always been the land of liberty, freedom, and opportunity. We were never the land of elitists. We were never the land of racism. We were never the land of oppression. This is where people fled those countries to come to find their dream here in America. And that's why we gather today to remember Tienanmen Square, how so many lost their lives in their pursuit for freedom, for love, for happiness. I ask you to appreciate what we enjoy every day, to come together in love of one another. We help one another. We lift one another up so that everyone in this great nation can enjoy freedom, liberty, and justice. God bless you. God bless America. And remember the heroes of Tienanmen Square.
Looks like somebody wants to have their own little protest. Maybe you should get a permit and go have one. Alrighty. Now we'd like to welcome to the stage the president of We the People Against Communism. Is Sarah Jones here? Sarah Jones, come on up. Thank you for what you do. Oh, you're already
making shit up. Y'all don't even understand what it was about. Like, it was not a Republican speaking.
Hi guys. I don't usually have speeches, but I felt like today was really important, so I actually have something written down. But you know, I'm not a professional, so I'm going to hurry up and try to find this thing. I tell you guys that all the time. Thank you for being so patient. Okay, I found it. Woo! So first of all, I would like to thank Jane Jin for asking me to be here today. She is actually one of my heroes. She's an amazing person, and I am honored that I was asked by her to be here. Thank you, Jane. Y'all got me nervous. I'm shaking. I'm not usually like this. I'm a loudmouth. This is crazy. All right. So today marks the 34th anniversary of the Tienanmen Square Massacre. Today we come together to celebrate and honor those who lost their lives to the Chinese Communist Party while standing up for freedom and their rights as human beings. Human beings. Doesn't matter their political side, the color of their skin, their rights as human beings. And they lost their lives because they stood up for those rights. Many people are unaware of what is happening in China. Chinese people are not allowed to celebrate, honor, remember, or even speak about what happened in Tiananmen Square. People who speak out about this massacre are silenced, canceled, and sometimes even jailed for it. The people who live in America are not allowed to speak to their families in China if they speak against anything against the CCP. None of it. They're scared them to death. They are not allowed to do anything, and it's not right. Some people haven't spoke to their families in years because of it. I stand before you to warn of all of you of America that the CCP has infiltrated America. The CCP comes in all different forms, okay? They didn't just come in here with tanks and mow you down. They're not going to do that in America. We own guns. Let's hear it. Right? And they know that because we own guns, they can't just come in here and mow us down. But don't think they haven't tried. And don't think they don't want to, because I promise you, they do.
Y'all are the ones mowing down children in school in a
New York had an actual Chinese police station in their state. The FBI came out and said they didn't even know it was there. Is that weird? Does anyone else find that strange? Here's the problem. It's not the only one. It's not the only state that has one. Also, is anyone aware that China has military in Canada? And in Washington State, in Pierce County, Washington, we have Canadian military. Why?
Because they're the
Right here in Pierce County, we have our own military. Why do we have Canadian troops on our soil, in our country, in their uniforms, walking down our streets? The CCP has already implanted the Chinese Confucius, sorry Jane,
We have more Americans
Institute into PLU, and they are working their hardest to put it in the K through 12 school system. There's over 500 schools that have contiguous classrooms, is what they call them. 500 public schools in America have a contiguous institute for the Chinese spies.
Do your
What does that tell you?
Do your research. That's crap.
I bet you didn't know. Oh, sorry, I already said that part. I'm sorry. Not professional, right? Okay, so one thing we know: the Democrats are in bed with the Chinese, right?
Are you kidding me?
100%. You want to know who else is in bed with the Chinese? The Republicans. Okay? You guys, listen. We have this whole rhino thing going on, and the rhinos, the Republicans, and the Democrats are working together to destroy our country and our freedom. All right? And again, it comes in all different ways. The homeless people on the streets, you don't think that's put into place by the government? The people in the back screaming because they want to wear dresses and have tits, although they're men, screaming? The police, not these ones, but the police that have to stand back with their hands tied and do absolutely nothing when crimes are being committed. You don't think that that's government imposed? Our biggest problem in our country is our schools. The public education system is brainwashing your children. They are destroying the American family because of what they are teaching your children and what they are doing to your children. I heard the other night that there's still good school teachers in America. I'd like to meet them because if you're still working for the school department, you're not a good teacher. We know what's happening. If we all stand up, we win. That's how we win. You destroy the public school system, we win. Save your children. That's how you do it. Yes.
Thank you very much. We are going to have Mr. Wang Biyong come up and speak and say his speech in Chinese. We are way above, beyond, we're ahead of schedule. Thank you. All right, so come on up and he's going to give his speech in Chinese for those who do not speak English.
Thank you, Carrie again. 我刚才讲的是英文，所以我刚才突然想起来，很多在座的都是从国内来的，或者说是可以说中文的。我想用中文简单的介绍一下我哥哥的情况，还有他的现状。我哥哥刚才说了，他1982年的时候，他就放弃了他的医学生涯，在他拿到了博士学位以后，放弃了医学生涯，他决定为中国的民主把自己的一生献上。在1982年底的时候，他创办了《中国之春》杂志，也同时创办了中国民主团结联盟，为中国人的自由、为中国的法治来奋斗。在21年前，也就是2002年的时候，他认识到，在中国要实现民主的话，他一定要在中国建立反对党。那个时候，他已经在海外建立了第一个反对党，就是中国民主党。但是他说，要在中国改变中国的话，只可能在中国有机会建立反对党，那么他才能够有生根发扬光大。所以在2002年的时候呢，他就去越南，在那边呢想跟国内出来的人呢，那边见面建立反对党，但是没有想到他在那个地方的时候被抓起来，被诱捕到中国，然后呢用莫须有的罪名给他判了无期徒刑。现在已经21年前，已经21年了，他一直在单独牢房里边被关押。他的理念就是中国要实行民主，唯一实行中国民主的办法就是革命，要把中共推翻，要人民做当家做主。所以他是为了这个理念，在中国坐了21年的牢。在目前的情况下，我们不知道他什么时候会被释放，什么时候被减刑，什么时候被保外就医，但是我们一直在努力。还非常令人满意的，也让人兴奋的一件事情就是说，他有一个小女儿，也就是在1986年的5月份出生的一个小女儿。他为了当时纪念中国在北京天安门广场运动，他把他的女儿叫天安，起名叫天安，就是天安门。这个小女儿呢，她2个月之前，她法律大学毕业以后，她放弃了她的那个高薪的薪水，不做律师。她和她的哥哥叫王代士一起组织了一个法律事务所，专门为中国的民权、为中国的人民谋利益。去年他们为中国人争气，然后呢要把那个中国在腾讯的一些违法的事情公布出来，所以他们在自己做了很大的努力，在控诉腾讯。上个月他们接受了一个非常大的案子，就是说在华盛顿的时候呢，中国大使馆前面有一个女士，年纪蛮大，后继有人，因为王炳章的他虽然失去了自由，虽然在监狱，但是他的儿女继承了中国民主的火炬，为中国人权继续在奋斗。所以谢谢大家今天能够来听听这个故事。所以大家不要气馁，也不要放弃，我们会胜利，中国一定会民主，中国共产党一定会发财。 因为正义永远得胜，正义永远会得胜。王炳章在20多年前被判刑的时候，被判刑无期徒刑的时候，他在手铐脚镣的时候，被他判刑以后说：“中国民主必胜，中国民。”所以我们不要气馁，我们不要放弃，我们永远会胜利，因为正义在我们的身边。我刚才有那个我哥哥写的书，就是那本书，他被判了无期徒刑，所以请大家到那边自己进屋拿取那本书，让我们更加理解到我们在美国的生活是多么的自由，是多么的幸福。I just want to say that it is so good to live here, to live in a free country. Yes, thank you. It is privileges to have this right and freedom here. I want to thank you, Harry, again. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you. 谢谢哈。
Go over there. So raise your hand over there with the referendums. Thank you for being here. That's right. Okay. So Mr. Jieming Bai is the East Coast president of the Chinese Democracy and Human Rights Alliance and Federation for a Democratic China. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Jieming Bai. Did I say that right? Okay.
So many people.
Do you want me to bring
The first congressional, I was overwhelmed and behind the 8 ball most of it.
And that's a big job.
But Chuck gave me his name and number, said he had experience, it'd be helpful. He didn't attend.
Yeah.
So I think we talked, but I can't really.
Yeah.
He can't either, so
Okay.
I'm safe.
Why don't you
OK。女士们、先生们，下午好。
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
34年前的今天，
34 years ago today,
邪恶的法西斯的中国共产党军队学习了中国北京天安门广场
the evil Nazi Chinese Communist Party regime blood-washed Tienanmen Square.
这些只是为了争取民主和自由，为中国人民呐喊的那些学生。
They crack down those who are in the Tiananmen Square, those students demand freedom.
中共军队竟然动用了坦克和机关枪，
The Chinese Communist Party regime
大海杀界，
sent the military tanks and machine guns and went to Tiananmen Square and did that massacre.
34年后的今天，中国共产党政权不思悔改，继续作恶。
34 years later today, the Chinese Communist Party regime still have no change continuously against the people.
继续危害世界和中国人民，危害美国的国家安全。
The CCP against the Chinese people, American people, and the people in the world and disturb our peace.
中共的国安和军队的间谍，现在在美国土地上到处渗透，进行破坏和颠覆活动。
The Chinese Communist Party regime spy system and its secret service, spies and police station is inside our United States, and they are aiming to take down the United States of America. We cannot allow that to happen.
中共的目的就是要推翻美国的自由世界。
The CCP our normal common sense and our normal life.
也对我们这些华人生活在美国也形成了一个威胁，也对美国人民形成一个巨大的威胁。
The CCP in the United States did not against and threat our Chinese people here, also against American freedom and infiltrate against all of our rights.
作为一个中国人，现在非常着急。
Now, as a Chinese, we are very, very worried.
希望美国人民起来
Please stand up, Americans, and we are standing with you to protect this country.
攻破美国政府，
And we must convince our government
推翻中共政权。
take down CCP and the CCP regime.
让我在这里以满腔愤怒的心情，带大家喊起声口。
We against the CCP. Let's shout out.
打倒中国共产党，
打倒中国共产党 down with the CCP.
消灭中国共产党，
Get rid of the Chinese CCP.
军事打击中国共产党。
Militarily, forcibly against the CCP.
共产党滚出美国，
CCP, get out of United States.
共产党滚出中国，
Chinese communist regime, get out of China.
共产党滚出联合国，
CCP, get out of UN.
自由属于人民，
自由属于人民。
自由永远属于中国人民和美国人民。
Freedom is always belongs to people. People in China and United States of America.
谢谢大家。
Thank you so much.
So we might go on to our next speaker. All right, our next speaker is a freedom leader with Solid State Ministries. Please welcome Pastor Dave Marston. Pastor Marston, come on up. I think I've heard you speak before. This guy's an outstanding speaker.
What is up, Seattle? I tell you what, I have got to apologize for some of the sentiment, man. People get a little bit excited when they come up here and speak about the problems that are in front of us today. But you know what? We need to have some heart nowadays. Because the reason that the Chinese Communist Party came down on their own youth back in 1989 was to destroy their heart, to destroy their voice, to put an end, man, to their sentiments, to crush their emotions, to send them packing. I tell you what, man, back in 1989, the Chinese Communist Party brought to bear hollow point rifle ammunition on their own youth. What that means is that the ballistic will break apart and exaggerate the wound tract as it enters the victim. That's why these kids would bleed out in the streets. They would get shot in the leg, and the wound would explode through their leg, opening their arteries, and they would bleed out in the street. The military was going around, and there's testimony of this to this day. There was all this Western media that was over there. Everyone was seeing what was going on. And the Chinese military was going around picking up bodies in the street. So you don't really know the number of how many died that day, but I will tell you what. A couple of days later, June 5th, June 6th, the hospitals in Beijing were saying that the death toll was 7,000, 7,500. That's what they were saying then. But by the end of the week, they had to put a muzzle on it because they got a call from the government and they're like, oh no, 40, 50. That's what it really was.
they were trying to crush the truth of what happened. In 2015, I think, there was a declassified British cable from the British diplomat to China back in 1989, and he said back then, he was there, he would know, he said at least 10,000 they killed. At least 10,000. So the point, man, the point why they brought that to bear against the lone was to shut down their heart, to shut down their voice, to shut down their freedom. I tell you what, freedom does not exist on a piece of paper declaring to you your rights. You have to be free. China showed, the Chinese Communist Party showed us what it looked like, what tyranny looked like that day. It is high time that we show the despots of the world, the tyrants of the world, the totalitarians in our midst. It's high time we show them what freedom looks like. Come on, Seattle, we gotta have a heart in these days. We gotta have a heart. It is time to respond to the trouble and not be crushed by the terror that they seek to bring to bear against us. Let me close in saying this, that after the massacre in Tienanmen Square, June 4, 1989, the Communist Party was going around trying to round up the leadership, trying to round up all the kids that were involved. They had not yet killed in the streets. And so there was there's actually a documentary about this called Operation Yellowbird, and it's about them trying to get these kids out of China. Okay? So they're bringing the kids down to Hong Kong to try to get them out. Guess who wouldn't help them? The American diplomat. Okay? America and George Bush was like, you know what? No. Wouldn't help them. The Australians wouldn't help them. Down the list you go. The British wouldn't help them. It was only the French. It was only the French that, for God knows why, man, could find the heart to reach out to these kids and give them access out. I tell you what, we need to be like the French. Dare I say, we need to have a heart and not allow ourselves to be cornered by fear. Come on, Seattle. Raise your hand if you want to be free.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. That's pretty disappointing that our country wouldn't help when people needed it. That's why elections matter so much. All right, now. Next, we're going to welcome to the stage Wu Zhou. She has been arrested by the Chinese Communist Party over and over.
Pretty good.
Please give a warm welcome to this freedom fighter and hero,
Just because I wanted to make sure I didn't.
Wu Zhou.
Well, I took too big of a fair photo yesterday, and I added 40%. Then my computer restarted because Microsoft 11 bugged in. So I have to re-upload that and this by tonight.
Testing.
I'm ready to get to methadone.
Sweet.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Okay.
My name is Wu Zhou. I came, escaped from the evil China. After the CCP took over the mainland China, the Chinese people never could stand up ever since then. And our lives deeply went worse and worse. Obviously, the CCP created all the disasters. It is all because of its tyranny, dictatorship. People don't have any right to speak out. 美丽的谎言包装。Once again and again, always cheated by the CCP Communist Party regime. 欺骗着一代又一代的中国人民和世界人民。The CCP fooled way after one generation after another, and so the CCP cheated the Chinese people and the world. 从过去到今天，一直到未来。From the past to today and in the future too. 我是不幸的14亿中国人民中的一员。I am one of the millions of Chinese. 同时，我又是最幸运、最幸福的一员。And also, I'm one of the very lucky one. 幸运的是，我今天逃离了中共的魔掌，来到了这片自由的天地。I am so lucky because I escaped from China. Be here free. Thank America. 从此，我将远离苦难。From now on, I will be free, not tortured by the CCP. 但是，还有千千万万、上亿的苦难的中国同胞们。But there are still billions of Chinese still in China. 无法逃离中共的统治。They cannot escape the CCP Communist Party regime control. 1989年的6月4日是中国人民的灾难日。June 4th, 1999 is a disaster day of the Chinese.
Maybe
中国人民不能忘记。Chinese people should never forget. 世界人民也不能忘记。We hope the whole world should always remember that day. 忘记64。世界将永不安宁。If we forget the Tienanmen massacre, the world will have no peace because the CCP will keep killing. 中国 will be in trouble, and because you should never trust them. 美国不把民主送到中国去。If America cannot send the freedom to China, 中国就会把独裁送到美国来。Then the CCP will send the tyranny to the United States. 所以我们必须战斗，现在就开始战斗。Therefore, we must start a fight against the CCP from now on. 我战斗 ，fight for our freedom. 全球和平而战斗 ，fight for the world peace. We shall fight for it. Thank you very much. By the way, your brother was arrested by the CCP regime and he was killed inside the jail. And because these two sisters want to let the people know, that's why these two sisters were repeatedly arrested and sentenced. And that's what happened to their family. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to hear people who have listened, who have been through it, to come speak about why we need to fight for our freedom. And the way we fight, I got a phone up here. Is this your phone? Okay. The way we fight in America is we make sure that we vote. So I want to bring up to the stage a common sense candidate for the Seattle City Council. Please give a warm welcome to Victoria Palmer. District number 6.
Thank you, Carrie. Hello, friends. And I do mean friends. I know so many of you out there. And thank you to all my new friends, everyone from the Chinese community that is speaking out on behalf of freedom. Let me share a bit myself. Well, let me first of all say that we're all here united by this image of Tank Man, standing in the face of insurmountable odds. This image came to me here when I was in high school, and I'm sure I didn't get the whole story, but the image speaks for itself. One person standing up, standing their ground for what they know to be true. Standing for freedom, standing for those who didn't have a voice, standing up against authoritarianism. So now a bit about myself. When the COVID pandemic started, I was just one person who was not afraid to speak out. I took one sign out on the streets of Seattle. One sign questioning the pandemic, questioning the lockdown. Because I could see how this was started and where it was going. That was April 2020. Now we all have had a different experience with COVID, and I don't want to make light of what for many was a serious medical condition. But it never filled our hospitals to capacity. We did not have the mass numbers of casualties that had been predicted, that all of these measures have been predicted on. So we need to take a look back and see where we could have done better instead of just opening the door to this invasion of totalitarianism, this takeover of our rights, infringement upon our rights. So my campaign for truth and freedom grew. I added people as volunteers to my group. We started marching on the streets of Seattle. And our marching, we kept marching, we kept getting out there with signs, we kept adding people we keep meeting and adding people to our group that were fellow Americans that knew that what was going on was wrong. So if you recall, in January of 2022, we reached a peak of the mandates. We were under a mask mandate. Most people in their workplaces were facing a vaccine mandate. This is in America, where we were now, almost overnight at the flip of the switch, we are now requiring an injection of a virtually unknown substance into your arm in order to keep your job, in order to keep your right to the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, American principles, you would now have to take a vaccine. Where was the outrage? Where was the uproar? It was us. It was us in our small group marching on the streets. And let me tell you folks, we were here right on this stage. Our march started on January 8th, 2022 at the height of the mandates. We gathered here almost 1,000 people from Seattle and from outside of Seattle in this darkest place with one of the highest rates of enforcement, of compliance. But those of us who came together, we marched from right here in Westlake Plaza, we marched through Pike Place Market and back. And let me tell you, we changed things. We shifted things that day. We looked at each other instead of with despair, we had hope. And we brought that out into the community. And let me tell you, it was right after that the mandate started to lift. The mandate started to lift. The Vax ID ended. The mask mandate ended. And the workplace vaccine mandates started to end, but they didn't completely end, so we followed through. We marched in Olympia this year, and now I can say those mandates are ended too. So my friends, persistence. I welcome today those voices from China. We are fortunate to have Jane Jin here organizing this today. A voice that we need to hear. And so we stand together to keep America free and to bring that to China, because we need China to be free. Yeah. And we need to end this right here, you guys. So I am bringing my crusade to Seattle, where I am running for City Council in District 6. And going door to door to continue this message, because Seattle is filled with people of compassion, but our compassion has been misguided to support this pandemic and now to support a homeless crisis, and who knows what other emergencies are coming up. We need to wake up to American principles that have gotten us this far, and to hold on tight to principles of freedom and rugged individualism that will save Seattle. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you. You can support her by volunteering or donating. We need to save Seattle, because Seattle is a beautiful city. Okay, if you want to sign or whatever, she's got a table over here. So, our next speaker is a great American. He serves on the Washington State Republican Executive Board and on the Kent County GOP Executive Board with me. If you want to get involved, if you want to make sure that the Republicans aren't in bed with the communists, get involved. Become a precinct committee officer. So we're going to welcome to the stage now Mr. Paul Blumas from Seattle.
Hi.
Hi, Paul.
Okay. So on this anniversary of Tienanmen Square, it is useful to reflect on the techniques of mind control that were used under communism and which are being used today in critical race theory group sessions, and which will destroy our nation if not stopped. The most powerful mind control system, the greatest the world has ever seen, was developed by Joseph Stalin in the 1930s in the Soviet Union, and then was later adopted and further developed by Mao. And the result of that was the mass murder of the Cultural Revolution. That system of brainwashing was called group self-criticism sessions. Ostensibly based on ridding oneself of what they call bourgeois tendencies, in these self-criticism group sessions, one is induced to become the forever guilty enemy of oneself. I know this personally because I am a survivor of a Mao self-criticism group from the early 1970s. These self-criticism sessions seek to destroy that unique quality of the sovereign mind of the individual that is the underpinning of Western civilization and even Confucian civilization in China. Destroying our citizens' capacity to think independently is what this brainwashing does. And this is the kind of mental holocaust that the globalists are seeking to impose upon us today in order to enslave us. Critical race theory sessions in schools, corporations, government institutions, and now our military use the same techniques as Stalin and Mao. Bourgeois tendencies as the enemy has been replaced by something similar: racial privilege. All white males must purge themselves and confess in a group their thought crimes of racial privilege.
The so-called victims, women, LGBT, the people of color, a totally made-up category, are induced in these sessions to dwell on every little slight they have ever received in life, to obtain that purity of perfect victimization. A permanent sense of being a victim will also destroy one's mental sovereignty. That's what they're going after. That's what they're going after. Your ability to think. Your very ability to think independently. That's what they're attacking. And they're doing it to our kids. And we have to stop it. And it is modeled on what Stalin and Mao introduced. And it is modeled, and it was perfected, and has been developed, and it's now here in the corporations, in the government, in the schools, everywhere, and it has to be stopped. And ending this communist created form of brainwashing to enslave us. Critical race theory that has been adapted from the practice of communist rule is something that the anniversary of Tienanmen Square needs us to reflect on as we move into the 2024 elections to mobilize and defeat this and everything else related to it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Paul. He's exactly right. You conquer a nation by dividing it up into classes, into victim classes. All right. Our next speaker is representing the Raul Garcia for Governor campaign. Raul grew up in communist Cuba, so he knows what it's like to live under communism. So we're going to have Suzanne Kielman come up and represent his campaign and speak for 3 minutes.
Welcome.
Are you going to do more high heels? Oh, okay. That's my kind of girl.
Thank you everyone for the opportunity to be here today. I do want to give acknowledgement to all of the police officers and all of the security and all of the volunteers that made today possible. How wonderful is it and what a signal of diplomacy that we are able to do this today. And they are not trying to silence us, but they're keeping us safe, which is the exact reason that Tiananmen Square happened. So as Carrie mentioned, I am here on behalf of Dr. Garcia, who grew up in communist Cuba. I myself have a personal story with communism. My grandmother escaped North Korea to have my mom in South Korea. So my mom was raised listening to sirens and practicing war drills on a weekly basis. My stepfather was actually fighting in the war during that time, and when I joined the Air Force, I was actually stationed at the DMZ, and I got to practice the very same war drills that my mom practiced when she was growing up. So if that's not a symbol of communism still being very alive and well, I don't know what is. But I want to raise my children in an environment where we're not practicing war drills anymore, and where we can take history and use it as lessons learned and not use it as propaganda to promote more hate. So let's remember this day. I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran, Asian American, and board member to the Asia Pacific Cultural Center. When Dr. Garcia asked me to speak on his behalf to commemorate today's historical significance, I was honored. Not only because Dr. Garcia was born in Cuba and knows the harsh truth of a one-party rule, but because Slade Gorton was a mentor to Dr. Garcia and the author of the Chinese Student Protection Act. They're both of the mindset and the belief that we must renew our dedication to the freedoms that they died for and to pledge that we will not give up their cause. Thank you. Dr. Garcia and all of us here can see history repeating itself today. The censorship of information, the cancellation of truth, and a fictional narrative used as propaganda to promote tyranny instead of peace. As we speak, freedoms around the world are at risk. In Hong Kong, a candlelight vigil has now been replaced with fear and forced silence. In New York, the Hope for a Free China Museum has been labeled as a symbol of defiance. And in San Francisco, the statue, Goddess of Democracy, is under threat, yet again, by repressive leaders within the People's Republic of China's government. The People's Republic of China, not China's people. the United States of America, not America's states. Dr. Garcia knows that we are one and want to build better lives for ourselves and our children, and will stand for a government that serves as a safety net, not as a net. American, Korean, Cuban, Chinese, whoever you are not defined by the subjugation of those that call themselves leaders. You do have the freedom to make change and elect officials that are an extension of your voice, not look to silence it. Let us remember this day, June 4th, by resisting. Resisting the labels, resisting Asian hate, resisting control. Let the seeds of sacrifice have a generational harvest of free thinkers for all of China and all people living under communist tyranny. Let's embrace the Chinese who choose America as home, who choose no limits on their prosperity, who choose to be courageous and exercise the ability to disagree with government without fear. Let us embrace the Chinese for their contributions to serve democracy and a republic, for their love and their ability to express it. Tyranny is the extinction of the human spirit, and democracy is how we preserve it. They will coexist throughout our days, but not without the efforts of the tank man that lives in all of us. On behalf of gubernatorial candidate Dr. Raul Garcia and myself, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to welcome to the stage Seattle City Council District 4 candidate Ken Wilson. I haven't met Ken, so we'll see how you do.
1989, I was a freshman in college. These students, same as me. So that could have been me. That could have been us trying to make our liberty. Thanks to Jane and to everyone here. Xiaoyan, thank you. So I'm going to read a little bit about me and about the importance of what you're doing here today. My name is Ken Wilson. I'm running for that open District 4 seat. I'm a business owner, an engineer for 31 years, a father, a husband, and I've called Seattle my home for the last 3 decades, 30 years. So I ask you imagine, if possible, just imagine a history without Tienanmen Square, without the atrocities in Tibet, without silencing of Hong Kong, without the Chinese Communist Party's human rights violation. And so I'm thankful today for a rally like this because Chinese Communist Party prevents that better world that we might imagine. Therefore, we need what's happening today. We need people to preserve in everyone's memory what happened at Tiananmen Square on June 4th, 1989. I talked to my children about it. They don't know about it. How is that possible? I'm grateful for your demonstration right now today of our rights to freely assemble, to speak out, for freedom of press, and to cast our votes without fear or reprisal. These are fundamental. This is the freedom that we count on and that we take for granted. And so showing this support is what I'm here for and what I'm about. I support you. Unfortunately, Seattle now is under attack with people threatened, and they just don't feel safe. There's problems with our own public safety right here. On Friday, Gottfried High School was closed because shootings adjacent to school. In my own neighborhood, District 4. District 4 goes all the way from Wedgwood down through the University District. So in my own District 4, Wallingford, night fires occurred under the bridge at I-5 for months and months. People were killed, and that's only blocks away from John Stanford International School. This is months on end. Finally, in March, I supported the school safety committee parents, including Emily and Karen, to successfully and peacefully provide results. That encampment got moved out. Even now, I'm supporting the protection of UW's robust legacy in the East Asian Library, and I ask you to support that library as well. As a city council member, I will provide common sense governance that restores public safety and protects our city's international district, its history, its culture. With the right leadership, with the right council leadership, we can restore police staff to the needed levels and deliver on the public safety in our neighborhoods for a vibrant business environment that is a great place to live and work. Now just imagine if if you can, imagine a city with a council member that understands public works, supports local business, acts to protect our parks and schools, and funds our police and emergency responders. That same council member would act to address our homelessness. I will be that council member, and I ask for your support. And I thank you for doing this so that we can all remember how important this is. Thank you, Jim.
All right, he did good. Mr. Liao, and he is the organizer of the Red Square protest. Come on up. Yes! You gotta give it to this guy being at the University of Washington and standing against communism. That's great. Love it. We need more students to stand up for liberty and freedom.
Thank you. Before we start, I would like to show you our flag and banner. That's our flag, inspired by Revolution Hong Kong flag. This one, Free China, Revolution Now. It's time to stand up, to say no. So, let me show you our banner. Right China government. Say no to Xi Jinping. Stand with brave Chinese. Stand with freedom and democracy in our homeland and stop all the persecution against the brave Chinese people. We are going to show that on I-5 or Red Square, and to tell the whole Seattle, not all Chinese are running dog of the Communist Party. Some people like us, the younger generation, will never forget the pain of communism that bring to my motherland. Free China! Free China! So, as a younger generation of Chinese people, for me, at the beginning time, we really don't feel like what's happened on China. Due to the vast progress of Chinese economy and the capitalism elements that combined in Chinese Communist Party society has bring our society prosper for a while. However, but now, after finding the true information and Xi Jinping's oppression, we realize all the phosphor of Chinese society is based on sand. It's not based on solid stone, but sand. Because we realize, according to Chinese Communist Party, they can take our property, our life, and our love just on a simple government document, just based on some bureaucrat's idea. And the best idea Xi Jinping ever had was what we called 清零运动 the zero COVID policy. It's taking our freedom, our food, our family, and despite that, who made the coronavirus? Is that you, Xi Jinping? Xi Jinping, you are not my president. I speak for all the young dissidents. You are not my president, and the Chinese Communist Party is not my voice. Free China, thank you.
We need more courageous students to stand up for freedom and liberty. Did you know that Xi Jinping banned Winnie the Pooh? Because there was a picture going around of him and Barack Obama, and people were making fun of Xi Jinping, saying he looked like Winnie the Pooh. And the caption was, "Communism is poo." Can't even have a sense of humor in communism. Okay, our next speaker from all right, area coordinator of the John.
Hello, thank you so much. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the John Birch Society. In 1958, since 1958, we've been anti-communists. We've been educating people about communism for over 65 years. In 1958, Robert Welch founded the John Birch Society. It's an educational, patriotic, anti-communist organization named in the honor of Captain John Birch, whom he saw as a heroic martyr and the first casualty of the Cold War. 10 days after the end of the war, U.S. Army Captain John Morrison Birch was sent on a mission to meet up with surrendering Japanese forces. He was a legendary and heroic figure throughout China, having first come there as a Baptist missionary, and later distinguishing himself with incredible acts of bravery throughout the war, including rescuing the famous Colonel Jimmy Doolittle and his American flyers shot down over China. Captain Birch was murdered by Chinese communists, and his murder was covered up by the U.S. government officials who would not allow his death to become a cause célèbre that might upset their plans to turn China over to Mao's communists. The John Birch Society believes that individual rights are endowed by our Creator, not government. That the government's function should be limited to protecting our right to life, liberty, and property, and that individual rights are inseparably linked to individual responsibility. Thank you so much, and thank you, Jane. Okay, thank you. We have a last-minute addition, but we are still on schedule. So I'm going to invite military veteran and independent candidate for U.S. Senate, Dave Strider. Dave, what branch are you in? He's in the Marine Corps. I served with the Marine Corps my first duty station, so. All right, you got 3 minutes. You want to just speak that?
To come to an anti-communist
Look at that. We made those steep stairs.
I have 3 minutes to speak with you folks. I do have a prepared statement. I think I'm going to go off statement a little bit, just to talk to you about my relationship with the Chinese Democracy and Human Rights Alliance and their president, Jade Chen. 2019, I was asked to go to Paris, France, to be part of a memorial service for a assassinated person who was at Tienanmen Square in 1989, assassinated on his flight back to Germany, where he had his residence. Very solemn moment, but that just goes to show you the extent of what the CCP will do to get even. Their family, his family is living under fear, but they were able to attend the service. I stand with the people of China. I have. I've got thousands of emails and posts from the people who were there in Hong Kong fighting. And one thing that really got me was them singing and waving our flag. Well, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? And the rocket's red glare, that's all they knew of our anthem. But they sang it over and over again, waving our Star-Spangled Banner. people of China have been going through a rough time. There are people there in prison camps being re-educated, as they say. We cannot allow that to happen here. I'm a candidate for U.S. Senate here in the state of Washington. And as your senator-elect, I promise you, people of Asian descent will not be categorized into a segment of the population, but described as all American. I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you for the turnout. Tienanmen Square, we can never forget.
Thank you. That's right. And how can people get a hold of you if they want to volunteer or donate?
DavidStriderForSenate.com. I have some business cards too, if you want to reach out to me that way. But DavidStriderForSenate.com.
Okay, thank you. That's a Marine for you. All right, now before I introduce Dame Jen.
Hello, patriots. America have a bright future because of you. We have a tank man in Tienanmen Square. Doesn't afraid whatever in front of him. I was born in China. And I was in the Chinese military. We were told this country, the United States, is the biggest enemy of the Chinese Communist Party regime because it is a capitalism leader. 53 years ago, when I was in the military, we were told we must take down the United States because you are capitalism leader. We know the Chinese Communist Party regime has been trying to take down the United States for a long, long time. I was worked in the Chinese Propaganda Bureau. There were more than 30 languages lied to Americans and the whole world every day, every year, and tried to convince you that communism is the best way to go. No, that is not true, isn't it? No. The CCP showed what the communism looked like. It is murdering people, cheating on people, and gave people no freedom. Therefore, that Chinese Communist Party regime cannot represent the Chinese people, will not represent people like me or any of the Chinese. Down with the CCP! That regime has been killing people left and right through all different kinds of so-called political movement. And they killed many people who are Falun Gong practitioners. And therefore, now I would like to invite my friend Aiko Liu to speak with us about the CCP persecute against the Falun Gong. Let's welcome her.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Jane for providing me with this opportunity to address you today as we gather to commemorate the 34th anniversary of the student democracy movement at Tienanmen Square. At the same time, We condemn the evil communist regime's ruthless persecution and suppression of dissidents and the propaganda brainwash with all people in China. My name is Echo Liu. I was born and raised in China. I practiced Falun Gong starting in the year of 1997. As a former editorial director and an award-winning editor, I had enjoyed my life in China until it took a drastic turn in the year of 2000. As we reflect on the events of 30 students, a decade later, it extended its oppressive reach to target Falun Gong, a peaceful spiritual practice deeply rooted in the principle of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. Falun Gong promotes not only physical and mental well-being, but also cultivation of one's character and virtue, aiming for self-improvement and personal growth. The Chinese Communist Party felt the principles upheld by the Falun Gong poses a threat to its regime. It fears any belief system it cannot manipulate or control. Thus, a campaign of persecution was unleashed, with innocent practitioners like myself becoming victims of their ruthless agenda. I was arrested, detained without trial for over 2 years, and subject to unimaginable physical and psychological torture in a labor camp starting in the year of 2008, just before the Beijing Olympic Game was held in Beijing. I consider myself fortunate to have found refuge on this free land, but I cannot forget the Chinese people, Tibetan lamas, Uyghurs, and millions of Falun Gong practitioners who face similar ordeals, arbitrary arrests, imprisonment, forced labor, torture, and unimaginable horror of organ harvesting. These atrocities continue to this day, often concealed from the world's gaze, as the communist regime suppressed any information that exposes its crimes. So today, together, let us remember the lives lost in Tiananmen Square and honor the courage of those who fought for democracy and freedom. Let us extend our empathy and support to all those who continue to face persecution, including Tibetans, Uyghurs, Falun Gong practitioners, and everyone inside China, and human rights fighters. May our united voices serve as a beacon of hope, shedding light on the darkness that shrouds human rights abuses and demanding justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And those of you who have not seen Shenyun, I highly recommend the show. There was a scene in that where they showed kind of the story of Falun Gong, and I knew immediately when I saw the red star, it was the communists who are coming in to put down that particular religion. So under communism, you have no religious freedom at all. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for joining us on this day of remembrance and protest of the horrible Chinese Communist Party and communist parties everywhere.